Is this the best blended malt in the world? If you saw the Oswars recently, you'll know that they didn't think so. That award went to Compass Box Orchard House, but this stuff was nominated as well, and it did well, and it's very well thought of. This is Campbeltown Loch. Little bit of a landmark moment here. This is the first time I've reviewed a Springbank group product on this channel. But going back to what I was saying about the Oswars, this didn't win this year, although it was probably a lot of people's favourite. But to be honest, I'm kind of glad that this didn't win Best Blended Malt in that category. And that's because I do have a little bit of a problem with Campbeltown Loch, and that's that it's quite hard to buy at retail. Although saying that, this stuff has been in stock and available at a few places online recently, unusually. So it's perhaps a sign that maybe the flippers are finally tiring themselves out. Some of you might have been thinking, why is it that up until this moment I haven't reviewed any Springbank products? Springbank, Kilkerran, Longrow, Hazelburn, haven't reviewed anything from any of those yet, I don't think. And it's not because I haven't got them in my collection. It's a conscious decision basically not to add fuel to that fire, because everything Springbank is basically a flipper's wet dream at the moment. Springbank and Kilkerran in particular, but Longrow as well, and even Hazelburn these days, to be honest, they don't need any more hype than they've already got, even from a small channel like this. This one though, Campbeltown Loch, it is a little bit different. It is a Springbank product. It says blended and bottled at Springbank Distillery, Campbeltown. But whereas everything Springbank, Longrow, Hazelburn and Kilkerran is single malt, this is a blended malt. And I bought this bottle at auction actually. I don't often buy much at auction at all, because I think that there's too many people on auctions now and it's very hard to get anything resembling a bargain anymore. But I actually bought this one at the starting price, nobody else bid on it, and I bought it for I think about £5 less than the recommended retail price. So out there somewhere there is a flipper that actually lost money on this bottle. Anyway, getting back to the whiskey that we've got in the bottle, it's a blended malt as I said, and it's made solely with whiskey from the 5 Campbeltown distilleries, which is probably a little bit misleading because 4 of those 5 Campbeltown distilleries are in the Springbank group. So this can be only made with whiskey from Springbank, Longrow, Kilkerran, Hazelburn and Glen, Scotia is the only one that's not part of the Springbank group. So that means that this is a 100% Campbeltown blended malt. Does it mean that all 4 of the distilleries from Springbank and Glen, Scotia all in here? Maybe, maybe not. Are they all equally represented in here? Almost certainly not. But at least we know that this stuff is not just Glen, Scotia, because until probably about 5 years ago no one really cared about Glen, Scotia, and it would have probably been the educated guess that a blended malt like this is probably going to be majority of Glen, Scotia, because no one was really buying it. So essentially the reason why I bought this and the reason why I'm reviewing it is because at least at the moment it seems to be semi-available. It's not completely sold out and just impossible to find like most of those associated whiskies are. So let's get some in the glass, just give you a little close up of the bottle. Nice presentation on these. It's very much along the theme that we get from all of the Springbank and Hazelburn, all of those whiskies now. Nice little foil details and a lovely little seagull on the label there. Anyone that's spent any amount of time in a coastal area of the British Isles will be familiar with seagulls, and I'm sure everyone will love them as much as I do. It's really brilliant when they steal your food and crap down your back as you're walking along. Anyway, hopefully you'll have a little bit more of a positive experience with this blended malt. Campbeltown Loch on the nose. Very sweet and juicy on the nose. Sweet and juicy maltiness. Sweet and juicy fruity notes. A little bit of a note like unripe gooseberries and sweet juicy oranges on the nose. A little bit of a chocolatey maltiness. And a little hint of wood smoke. Along with that wood smoke, I think there's also a little note of a musty fustiness on the nose of this one, which I'd probably associate with something like a Springbank 10. Also quite nutty and biscuity on the nose. So nutty and biscuity malty notes, as well as quite a creaminess. A little bit of a seashore off-milk creaminess, which is something that I always associate with Glen, Scotia. So definitely some local terroir in there. You can tell that this is definitely a Campbeltown product. Let's see how it tastes. Actually reasonably clear. There's a little bit of haze there, but possibly would expect some more. Details on the label on this one, I kind of skipped that step. Doesn't tell us that much, considering it's a Springbank product. It's 46% ABV, 100% Scotch whiskies, blended malt. We know where it's bottled, because Springbank have their own bottling hall. 100% Campbeltown whiskies, and that's about it. So we have the ABV, we haven't got an age statement, and we've actually got no guarantee that this is natural colour and non-chill filtered, which is odd. I'm not sure if modern Springbank bottles, because I haven't bought anything from Springbank for a long time, because it's just an absolute piss take how hard it is to get hold of, and the premiums that you have to pay to get it from auction. I'm not sure if this is the case that they don't guarantee anything for any of their releases, but knowing Springbank, this is going to be natural colour and non-chill filtered, because I believe it's the case that Springbank is one of those distilleries that never actually started adding colouring or chill filtering. Still, would have been nice to have a guarantee. But on the palate, this whiskey, getting more of that wood smoke note, more of that fusty Campbeltown funk, also getting more of that juicy, malty, slightly barley waterish note coming through. Some bright and sharp lemon notes on the palate, as well as some tannic oak, and towards the end of the palate some bitter, slightly medicinal gin type notes. As for the finish, I'm going to say light and sweet with a dry farmy smoke, and compared to the notes that I got on the nose and the palate, I'm going to say unexpectedly slightly weak on the finish. As for a grade, I'd give this one a solid B, bang in the middle of the very good bracket. I think that this blended malt from the Springbank group, it's not exactly revolutionary, but it's a very good blended malt. And it seems to me, in my opinion, that the flavours that I'm getting on this one, I'd say that it seems like a good percentage of the whiskey that goes into this blended malt is probably from Springbank and Glen, Scotia, and possibly a bit coming through from Hazelburn. In my opinion, there's not much evidence that there's a huge amount of whiskey in this coming from Longrow or Kilkerran, just not getting those flavours. This does actually remind me a little bit of the Lidl 5-year-old Glenorchy whiskey blended malt. It's kind of like the Lidl Glenorchy on steroids. It's a similar profile, it's just that bit more mature and complex and intense. I think that a lot of people I can see being disappointed in this one if they buy this thinking it's going to be Kilkerran and Longrow in there, because in my opinion there's not a lot of outright peat in this, although there is that little bit of funk and dry wood smoke. In my opinion, just enough smokiness to be interesting, and true to any good blended malt, I think that it offers you more than you get with any one of the components on its own. It really combines the strengths of all those integral parts. I think that's really one of the strengths of the blended malt category, that you can work to the strengths of each individual component and merge them together and come out with something that's better than any of the single parts on their own. You compare that to some of the things that we see from single malt distilleries, where because they can't blend different base spirits, or it's too much trouble to, more often than not they'll just throw cask type on top of cask type, and they'll just muddle a bunch of woods together, giving a very muddy and confused single malt in a bid to try and increase the complexity. So Jura 7 wood, Lafroig 4 wood, I'm looking at you. So this blended malt from Springbank, Campbeltown Loch, I think it's a good one. It's a good blended malt, and I think it justifies the price, and it's worth that retail price if you can get it at that original kind of £35-ish mark. But absolutely not worth going above retail price at secondary if that's your only option. Hope you've enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think of this one or the Springbank group in general. Thanks for watching, and cheers.